After the cloud of anger, confusion, and disbelief from Jamie's murder finally began to clear, I was left with the question, what now? And that's really what we're all left with, the question. We're always standing at a crossroads. What now? So this terrible thing happened. It wasn't your fault. Nobody should have to go through it. It wasn't fair, whatever it is. But you always need to ask yourself, what now? When a tragedy hits, it can feel like a 2x4 upside the head. Out of nowhere, out of the blue, like my husband Rich always says, out of the blue. This is when we're at that crossroads that I talked about. We don't always control what happens to us, but when life explodes in our faces, I want you to think about this one. We have two choices: be dragged by the wreckage or rise from it. The next section in this chapter is lighting the fuse. And this is, at times we light the match ourselves, whether it's intentional or not. So a path destroying moment can even be disguised. I was going to say disguised as love. My mom, when she was 16, met my biological father, and I guess she thought she was in love with him. Long story short, she's pregnant at 16, and at 17, she has her first child, which is my older brother. And then by the time she was 20, she had 3 of us. My mom was also a straight A student, an only child. My biological father had 13 kids in his family. The family was, it was rough. It was a totally different world from my mom's world. And so basically, that's when her mouth caught fire, right? Her college dreams went up in smoke. And so even though it seemed like an innocent decision at the time, it altered the course of her life. And she was able to find my stepdad, and they ended up married and really brought a brother and a sister along. And we've had a great family unit since. And so my mom was able to douse the fire, but I think that she's always kind of suffered from that choice to this day. And then sometimes it's something deeper. And I tell a story about Sandy. And the only reason that I'm not going to have a clip of Sandy in this episode is that she had something else going on in her family. I wasn't able to interview her on video so that you could have a clip of her talking about this story. But I'm going to include it in a future episode because I also included a different part of Sandy's story in that episode. But Sandy was Jamie's friend, and they lived in Indio together. They didn't live together, but they were in Indio together, on the streets together. They were in addiction together. And when Jamie was murdered, Sandy thought she could be next because she and Jamie were sort of the outsiders. They hadn't grown up in that little, whatever they call gang world over there. And what's interesting is that Jamie and Sandy came from totally different worlds. Sandy lived kind of on rough roads most of her life. And, her dad is an addiction to this day. And, she had a rough go of it. And so it's kind of interesting how their lives collided, and they really loved and appreciated each other. And there's a lot to Sandy's story for her to be ashamed of and feel like she would have no hope. And the bottom line is that because of Jamie's murder, it's what caused Sandy to finally find recovery. And she has been in for years now. And she had another child, and she named her Jays Lynn. My daughter's name was Jamie Lynn, and so she's Jamie's namesake. And so I'm really honored by that, but so, I'm sure I wish Jamie had found her way out like Sandy, but at least someone did, right? The point is that everyone's one decision away from ruining their life or turning it all around. So even if you've made so many bad decisions, or someone has, you can always extinguish the fire. Don't ever think it's too late. What I said in this book is, the good news is you can extinguish the fire even if you've lit the fuse 1,000 times. If you know somebody who has lit the fuse 1,000 times, maybe they're in addiction like Sandy and Jamie were, get this book for them. Burn them out. So much of it will inspire them, not just Sandy's story.